If you're like me, you know your mind can be your best or your worst friend. Our mind is an amazing tool that can do incredible things, but our mind can also create problems out of nowhere. Sometimes our mind keeps recommending the same solutions to problems even when they aren't working. I see this pattern play out as individuals try to overcome their anxiety, depression, or even struggles with pornography, using approaches that make sense but aren't very helpful. This podcast will show you how real researchers and clinicians are changing the way we approach mental health and reveal helpful research-supported principles designed to help real people with real problems. My name is Dr. Cameron Staley, and welcome to the Life After Series Radio. Hey everyone, Cameron Staley here. Welcome to the first episode in our Life After Series Radio. I'm really looking forward to having more informal conversations with you about things I care about, like mental health, how to be kinder to ourselves and each other, but also to bring you resources about better ways to address different concerns that we struggle with, from anxiety to depression to relationship issues to unwanted pornography. So the first Life After program that we rolled out was on how to overcome pornography. That's something I've been researching for many years now. I've worked with lots of clients that struggle with pornography for decades, and there are really helpful approaches out there that can be productive for people who've tried all kinds of approaches that haven't worked for them. So in the Life After Pornography program, I walk people through kind of a 10-week sequence using principles from acceptance and commitment therapy that I use a lot in my therapy work with clients that I work with. And I found it really helpful. It can be challenging. I know the first time I learned ACT, that's the acronym for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, my first thought was like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm never going to do that. That's completely different than what I had taught before. I went to a clinical psychology graduate program, and I thought I was going into there to treat disorders, to reduce symptoms. That was kind of my mentality. So I had received a lot of training in traditional cognitive behavioral therapies. And I remember a speaker came to campus, Michael Tuig from Utah State University, who had studied under Steve Hayes, who developed ACT. And he taught us about how, there's certain things like thoughts or emotions that you can't change or get rid of or reconstruct. So maybe we could create space for having thoughts and emotions or urges and allow those to be. And maybe instead of focusing on getting rid of symptoms like depression or anxiety or even unwanted pornography viewing, we could focus more on our values, building the life that we really want, on relationships we care about, on our interests, our health, our spirituality. And I thought, this is not what I'm supposed to do as a psychologist. I'm there to reduce symptoms, to treat mental health problems. So I remember just sitting ACT down and thinking like, well, that was interesting, but never going to do that. But in the back of my mind, it always kind of sat there as like, oh yeah, there is that one approach. And yeah, sure, it has a lot of research that's growing. Yeah, it's got over 300 randomized clinical trials. But I don't know, it's not what I was taught. And I think that's what I appreciate about ACT, is it's an alternative approach to the way our mind typically solves problems. And it's not the way we were taught, not the way our mind thinks. ACT tends to use a lot of stories, metaphors, alternate ways to think about our struggle. And what I've learned by working with a lot of people over the years is often our attempts to fix our challenge, whatever that challenge is, often becomes part of the reason why we're struggling, or maintains the struggle, or sometimes makes it even worse. So ACT allows us to step back, maybe observe our attempts a little bit more, and really determine, is what we're doing helpful, or is it making it worse? Sometimes the ideas our mind generates is really helpful. It's very creative. Other times it makes sense, but sometimes it's not as effective as we think. So I really appreciate that approach now, even though it was challenging for me to adopt and integrate. So I remember putting ACT down for a while and then reading it during my last year of my graduate program, studying it, really thinking about it, considering it, applying it to my own life. But I didn't begin implementing principles from ACT till I started my residency at BYU's Counseling Center. They do a lot of ACT there because ACT is really helpful for lots of anxiety, perfectionism, stress, people that are pretty smart, and also compulsive behaviors. So one of the really common presenting concerns they have at that university is people wanting to reduce or eliminate their viewing of pornography. So they've been offering ACT groups for 15 years, 10 years, 15 years by the time I got there, probably 15, 20 years now, a really long time. And I was pretty surprised. I thought, oh, this is interesting. I thought there would be an addictions kind of program because the LDS Church has programs like that they've been offering for a long time, and I'm sure have helped a lot of people. But BYU, the psychologist there, used ACT because it had the research, it was effective, it really kind of met the underlying needs. That's when I first began to learn ACT. And then over the last 8 years working in university counseling centers, I've continued to use ACT mostly with anxiety, some with depression. I found it helpful with compulsive behaviors like OCD, hair pulling, or what they call trichotillomania, scrupulosity, which is kind of that moral component of OCD, and unwanted pornography. I found it continually helpful over and over and over. So the last group that I led, an ACT-based group for unwanted pornography, the group members had a really positive experience, and they challenged me in a way I've never been challenged before. They looked at me and said, hey, you asked us to start to live our life and do the things that we care about and be more open with our struggles and have conversations with friends and family and partners about sexuality and pornography. And they said, you need to do more. You need to make this approach more available to people that need it online. And I honestly looked at them and said, yeah, I think that's a great idea, but I don't do that. I'm a psychologist. I lead groups. I work with people one-on-one. I listen to people. I don't know how to make videos. I don't have the technology background. And that was probably the story I was telling myself, even though it's true. But the reality is, it's scary. It's really intimidating to think about leaving the comforts of my therapy office, where I get to know somebody, I can hear their struggle and support them in ways that are very specific to them. When you go online, you have to kind of speak in general terms. And sometimes when we do that, the message helps some people, but other people it's not helpful at all and can be unhelpful. So that was one of my biggest worries. If I created an online self-directed program, it might be generally effective, but I care about each individual. So if it's not helping one person, I wouldn't be able to interact with them and say, oh, okay, if ACT's not working for you, let's try something else. Or maybe there's an underlying issue we need to address first, like ADHD, or maybe there is OCD or an anxiety disorder. And I'm just not able to do that. So that was challenging. But also I know that people have really strong beliefs about pornography and that it's an addiction. And I don't have any interest in like getting into a debate or arguing with somebody about the definition if pornography is a compulsion or an addiction or just a high sexual drive. I think maybe there was a time in my life where that debate was intellectually interesting, but now that I've worked with so many people over the years, my only goal is to be helpful. So if ACT is helpful, I want to make that accessible for people to use. If the principles from ACT aren't helpful and you find addiction approaches to be more helpful, I would say keep using your addiction approach. I don't believe that one approach is best or that my views are necessarily correct or right or better than somebody else's. I'm just most interested in helping somebody overcome challenges and begin living the life that they want. And I found ACT to be really helpful in a lot of situations, particularly with pornography. And I recognize it's not going to be a perfect fit for everybody, and that's okay. But it's just hard to deliver that message when people have really strong beliefs around sexuality. It's a very sensitive topic. We don't have a lot of practice about navigating those conversations with families, partners, friends, and definitely online. I think as I've kind of observed interactions, people get pretty heated, and it's hard to have a lot of compassion for differences. And I think about people have good reasons to be heated. They've probably had pretty negative experiences in relationships, maybe been hurt by pornography themselves or by a partner that views. So I guess I care a lot about those that have strong reactions to maybe some of the things I might share about having more compassion for someone who's struggling. Even though I feel like having more compassion and kindness and support and understanding is going to be helpful and ultimately changing a behavior, there's such a human element that's really challenging when we've been hurt and wounded ourselves to step out of that. So all that being said, I hope what I share with people, some of the ebooks I've written and the online programs will be really helpful. Hopefully through these podcasts, I can address other concerns or questions that people bring up as they listen to other podcasts or other things they come across, things I've shared, my publications, all of that stuff. But in the end, I want things to be better. I want to make a difference. And I recognize we're so far away from consensus on issues like how to best conceptualize pornography. But for me, it's very clear to me that people struggle with pornography. That's real. That struggle's real. They experience real distress. Anything we do, from viewing pornography to scrolling through social media to drinking to overeating, impacts us. We have a body, we have biology. That does impact us at a physical level. But what I see most often with pornography is that it impacts us at an emotional level, that we change our identity from being a partner or a parent or a good person or a disciple of Christ or whatever religious identity you might have to I'm an addict. And that takes a toll on kind of our self-worth and what we're able to open up with people when we feel a lot of shame about a behavior that we're engaging in. And for me, I've found that disabling for people and being able to change a behavior that's been pretty chronic for them. So that's my hope, is that the things I share will be helpful to people. If you're coming across my material like this isn't helpful, I find other things that are more helpful, I'd say, yeah, just stop listening. Keep doing things that are helpful for you. But if you're part of the group where what you've been told to do hasn't been as helpful and you find some of the things I share to be working for you, that's my hope, that I can be part of the solution and not part of complicating anybody's kind of work on improving their mental health. So that's my hope. It feels ambitious. It feels intimidating. It can be pretty scary at times. I prefer the safety of my counseling office, but I recognize I can have a meaningful but limited impact on just working with people that seek me out. So I do want to reach out a little bit more and offer these resources, and I really hope it'll make a difference. So through the Life After series radio podcasts, I'll hope to share more about what are the underlying emotions that contribute to issues like pornography or anxiety. Just share kind of my thoughts on those things. Kind of teach some of the concepts of mindfulness and willingness that I found really helpful from ACT. So really just to deliver as much information on how to improve well-being as I possibly can. But also recognize that this isn't therapy. If you need help, consider contacting a licensed professional in your area that can really understand what you're going through, help you clarify the challenges, maybe offer a diagnosis, and provide in-person treatment. I think often many people benefit from that. I really value that a lot. So what I share with you is ideas. It's more kind of geared towards information, like a self-help book. It's not mental health therapy by any means. So don't view this as sufficient. If you're struggling and need more, I hope you do reach out for help. And I look forward to spending more time with sharing my thoughts and helping people overcome things like pornography, depression, anxiety, address relationship issues. And I hope it's helpful. So I'll spend more time talking with you in the future. And I hope this will be a good experience for all of us. So hope you have a good day. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, thanks for listening. Please remember to rate and subscribe. I know you might be facing some issues in your life or know someone who is. Issues like anxiety, challenges in dealing with emotions, or other compulsive behaviors like unwanted pornography. And I know it's tough to talk to people about problems. Difficult to stare those obstacles down that we face in life and to really know how to deal with them. It's hard to know what to say and when to say it. And then when that moment you finally reach out to family and friends happens, sometimes it falls flat. I haven't found many programs teaching effective strategies like mindfulness, how to improve relationships, and ways to address unwanted pornography viewing through research-supported principles. So whether you simply want to help with a problem like unwanted pornography, difficulty responding to emotions, or just want to understand the world of someone struggling with porn a little better, head over to LifeAfterPornography.com and get in on the next training. There you'll learn the exact same strategies individuals addicted to pornography used to transform their lives by implementing principles from evidence-based treatment shown effective in research for reducing unwanted pornography viewing. You'll learn the secrets, the myths, the enemies to recovery, and the LAP framework for dealing with unwanted porn viewing that we call WAVE. If that's something that interests you, click the link in the description or just head over to lifeafterpornography.com. I'm Dr. Cameron Staley. See you on the inside.